Hello everyone, welcome to second session of Newton's law. So Newton's law is all about questions, so let's practice more questions. So the question here is that there is this ram, there are two masses m1, m2, the inclinations on two sides is alpha and beta. So question is, what is the condition so that the system remains in equilibrium? For the system to remain in equilibrium, the force pulling both the sides must be equal. So the force pulling from this side will be m1g sin alpha and the force pulling on this side will be m2g sin beta, making the equation along the string for the system to be in equilibrium, the net force has to be 0. So m2g sin beta should be equal to m1g sin alpha. Cancelling out gg from both the side, you will get m1 sin alpha equals to m2 sin beta. Next question. If the pulley has mass of 2 kg, find the tension in the string joining pulley to the ceiling. So there are two masses of 3 kg and 7 kg. If this pulley also has got mass of 2 kg, what will be the tension in this string? So yesterday we have learned that the tension in this string comes out to be 2m1 m2g by m1 plus m2. So that comes out to be 21 into 2. That comes out to be 42. Now, if we make the free body diagram of this pulley, let's say the force of tension because of the string connected to ceiling is T dash. There is two force of tension because of the two strings, 42, 42, pulling it down. And there will be a force of weight as well because today this pulley is not massless. So that force of weight has to be equal to m into g, so that will be 20. If this pulley has to be in equilibrium, not to accelerate, the upward force should be equal to downward force. So you will say that T dash equals to 84 plus 20, 42 plus 42, 84 plus 20, 84 plus 20, that is 104. So T dash should be equal to 104. So now we will talk about springs. If you have a spring, to elongate it, you definitely have to pull it. You have to apply force outward, or to compress it, you have to push it. You have to apply inward force. Now here, the force that has to be applied to either elongate the spring or compress it is directly proportional to the deformation from its natural length. Now, force is directly proportional to x. The more you want to deform, the more the amount of force has to be applied. Then we add up a proportionality constant k and we write F equals to kx. Now here, one thing that we should remember, this spring constant neither depend upon the force applied, it neither depend upon the deformation in spring. It's a constant for a given spring, but it depends upon what? The type of material used, the radius of turn, the length of spring, the temperature and many things. But the one which we must know is that spring constant is inversely proportional to length. For example, if you have a spring of let's say length L and then you cut it into two equal parts. So one part will have half the length. Since the spring constant is inversely proportional to length, the one half which has half the length will have double the spring constant. So remember that for a given spring, given type, given material, given number of turns per unit length, given thickness of wire used, the spring constant is inversely proportional to length. The greater the length of spring, the lower the spring constant, the smaller the length of spring, the higher the spring constant. So let's see a question. There is a block of mass m connected with a spring of spring constant k. Question is, if the block is in equilibrium, find the elongation in spring. If the block is in equilibrium, then the net force acting on the block must be 0. So the downward force of gravity acting mg must be balanced by the upward force of spring, let's say kx. So what has to be the elongation in this spring? So if the net force is 0, you can say kx should be equal to mg or x should be equal to mg by k. More examples on spring. Let's say there is a spring of spring constant k from which we have suspended two blocks of mass m1 and m2. Initially, the whole system is in equilibrium. Now suddenly the mass m2 falls down. So now suddenly the mass m2 leaves the system. So as soon as the mass m2 leaves the system, you have to tell what will be the acceleration of m1 and what will be the acceleration of m2 just after the joint between them breaks. So now this is a very simple question. Telling acceleration of m2 is very easy. As soon as the m2 breaks off, there is only one force acting on it, and that is the force of gravity. Since the force of gravity acts on it, the only force acting on m2 after getting disconnected will be m2g. So the acceleration of m2 has to be g down, force divided by mass. Game over. Now what will be the acceleration of m1? So now let's try to understand it. Just before cutting, the tension here will be equal to the weight of the whole system hanging below, m1 plus m2 into g. The whole purpose of taking up this example is to make you understand that the force applied by a spring depends upon the deformation. As soon as the m2 falls, the deformation in this spring doesn't change suddenly. It takes some time. First the m2 falls, then the m1 accelerate up, then the deformation will change, and then the force applied by spring will change. So as soon as the m2 falls, the force applied by spring on m1 do not change. So dt time before, dt time after, that remains same. So look at the forces acting on m1 just after m2 detaches. So just after m2 gets detached, on m1 there is an upward force because of spring, that is m1 plus m2 into g, a downward force of gravity, that is m1g. So you can see there is a net unbalanced force of m2g, and let's say this block m1 goes up with an acceleration a. So you can write equation as the net unbalanced force in direction of acceleration, that is m2 into g, must be equal to mass into acceleration. So this block m1 goes up with an acceleration equals to m2g by m1, m2g by m1. Another question, next question is kind of the same question. There are two blocks of mass 2m and m connected with spring of spring constant k. Initially the whole system is in equilibrium. Now somebody suddenly comes and cuts this string. So you have to tell acceleration of both the blocks just after cutting of string. Let's first talk just before cutting of string, what will be the tension everywhere. The tension in this string supports the weight of the mass below it. So here the tension has to be equals to mg. The tension in the spring supports the weight of the mass below it. Okay, so the supports the weight of whole 3m. So the tension here, let's say T dash, has to be 3 mg. Now when you cut this string, just after cutting, this is what the picture looks like. So this is the spring connected to 2m, and this is the mass m. Now just like this question, both the questions are brothers. So just as soon as you have cut the string, the tension in string becomes 0. Now on this mass m, there is only one downward force mg, and the mass is m, so it will have a downward acceleration g. As for this 2m, just before cutting, the tension in the spring was 3 mg. So just after cutting, it will also be 3 mg. Now again you might be confused, why does not he change the tension in the spring? Understand that the tension in the spring depends upon deformation in the spring. For the tension or the force applied by spring to change, the deformation should first change. So just after cutting, this block haven't moved, because first it should accelerate, then it will gain velocity, then it will move, right? So now just after cutting, since the elongation in the spring is same, the force applied by the spring is same. So if we make the free body diagram of this block of mass 2m just after cutting, the spring still applies an upward force 3 mg. The force of gravity downward is 2m, and let's say under the influence of these two forces, this block accelerates up with an acceleration a. We can write the equation of Newton's law as the net force acting in direction of acceleration equals to mass into acceleration. So net force acting in direction of acceleration, 3 mg minus 2 mg, that is mg, equals to mass into acceleration, 2m into a. So from here you get acceleration comes out to be equals to g by 2. So the acceleration of this block is g by 2 upwards. Newton's law fails when observed from non-inertial frame. When I say non-inertial frame, it means that the frame must be accelerating. So is the frame moving at constant velocity, can be said non-inertial? No, It is inertial. Newton's law fail when observed from non-inertial frame. So, is it so that Newton's law are valid only in inertial frames? Yes. The observer shouldn't be accelerating. Let's take an example. Let's say there is a person jogging in the park. In the park, the person sees the bench, the person sees the tree. Let's say the person moves with a constant velocity of 2 meters per second. So in the frame of person will say, I am fixed, I am static, I am not at all running. In the frame of person, it will appear as if this bench and this tree will move with velocity of 2 meters per second. Then the person will think about Newton's first law. The Newton's first law says that anything in state of rest or uniform motion will remain so until unless some net external force acts on it. So now this person will try to apply Newton's first law on the bench and on the tree. So he will observe the bench and see no force acting on bench. He will observe the tree and observe no force acting on tree. Now he will be like, okay, no force is acting and they are moving with a constant velocity. Okay, Newton's law is valid. But the problem arises when, let's say, rather than this observer moving with constant velocity, let's say moves with an acceleration of 1 meter per second square towards right. So if this person accelerates with an acceleration of 1 meter per second square towards right, the person will observe that the bench accelerates towards left with an acceleration of 1 meter per second square, as well as the person will observe that the tree accelerates towards left with an acceleration of 1 meter per second square. Now this person will be baffled because in his reference frame now the Newton's law fail. Why? As seen by this accelerating observer, in his frame the observer will assume that observer is at rest. So as seen by this observer, the bench and the tree accelerates, but they accelerate without the application of any force. And Newton's first law clearly says that anything in state of rest or uniform motion will remain so until unless some external force acts on it. So here, how come without the application of force things are accelerating? That's why when the observer is accelerating, when the observer is non-inertial, Newton's law fail. So if Newton's law fail, now we can't solve question. So that's why physicists have found a trick to make Newton's law applicable even in non-inertial frame, and that trick is called pseudo force. A pseudo force, as the name suggests, is a force, a false force which actually do not exist. When the observer is non-inertial, in addition to all the forces acting on the body, we apply one more extra force. That force is pseudo force. Now see, if let's say this person accelerates with 1 meter per second square, this person will say, I am at rest, but this bench appears to accelerate here. If the Newton's law has to be valid, then on this bench there should be a force. How much? Mass of bench into the observed acceleration of bench. Similarly, if the tree appears to accelerate at 1 meter per second square towards left, there must be a force on the tree. How much force? Mass of tree into acceleration observed of the tree. Now, notice that if this person would have moved with an acceleration of 2 meter per second square, then the observed acceleration will be 2 and 2, and the forces acting will be mass of bench into 2 and mass of tree into 2. If the person would have accelerated with an acceleration A, then the force that must act on the bench so as to make Newton's law valid, in the frame of person, the person will observe the acceleration of bench A, and the force that must act on bench for bench to get this much of acceleration is mass of bench into A. Similarly, the force that must act on the tree to make the tree accelerate with an acceleration A must be equal to mass of tree into A. So now here, understand that force pseudo equals to minus times mass of the body into acceleration of frame. Why minus? Because if the frame has got acceleration towards right, as seen by frame, everything will have acceleration towards left. So the pseudo force must act in direction opposite to the acceleration of observer. So keep this in mind. What is force pseudo? Minus times the mass of the body times the acceleration of frame. So now let's think of one more case to understand the importance of pseudo force. Let's say there are two friends X and Y. X is on ground, fixed. Y is inside an elevator. And from the ceiling of elevator, we have got a block of mass m connected. Now let's say this whole elevator accelerates up with an acceleration a. Question is, what will be the tension in string observed by x? What will be the tension in string observed by y? Now see, as seen by x, x will say, dekh bhai, this elevator accelerates up with an acceleration a. So this person y as well as the block here must be also accelerating up with an acceleration a. Then he looks at the forces acting on the block. As seen by him, the force as seen by x, the forces acting on this mass will be a force upward T, a force downward mg, and x will say, dekh bhai, under the influence of these two forces, the block accelerates up with an acceleration a. So the net force in direction of acceleration T minus mg should be equal to ma. So the tension in a string should be m times g plus a. This is what x will say. Now what y will say? Y will say, as seen by me, the block is at rest. Since we both have same acceleration, relative acceleration is 0. As seen by me, the block is at rest. As seen by y, the block is at rest. As seen by y, there are two forces acting on the block. One a force of tension upward, one force of mg downward. So as seen by y, T must be equal to mg. Now, whose answer is right? The tension in this string will be m times g plus a as seen by x, or mg as seen by y. Answer is, y is not allowed to make Newton's law equation. Why? Because y is accelerating. Since y is accelerating, Newton's law fail when observed from non-inertial frame. So since y is not at all allowed to make the equation of Newton's law until unless y applies something called pseudo force. So now, so as to make equation in the frame of y, which is itself accelerating, apart from the forces already acting, we must apply one excess force, and that force is pseudo force. So now, what should y actually do? In the frame of y, y will say there is a force of tension T upwards, there is a force of gravity mg downward, as well as y should apply a pseudo force in the direction opposite to the acceleration of frame. Since the y has got upward acceleration, the force pseudo must act in the direction opposite to acceleration of frame. How much? Mass of the body times acceleration of frame. So mass of the body is m, acceleration of frame is upward a, so the pseudo force downward acting will be ma. Now in the frame of y, y will say this block is at rest, and there are three forces acting on it, T, mg, and the pseudo force. Now since the block is at rest, the net force on the block has to be 0, so T must be equal to m times g plus a. Now you can see both have got same answer. So first thing first, why physicists define a force called pseudo force when it's a false force? Pseudo force has been defined to make the equation of Newton's law applicable even when the observer is non-inertial. How much force has to be applied? Minus times the mass of body times the acceleration of frame. Remember that pseudo force must be applied in the direction opposite to the acceleration of frame. So let us now understand the concept of G effective. Let's say there is an observer inside a lift going up with an acceleration a, and this observer observes a particle of mass m inside the lift. Now since the observer is also accelerating up with the lift, the observer is a non-inertial observer. As seen from this observer, two forces will be acting on this mass, a force of gravity, as well as he must apply a pseudo force. Remember that how much pseudo force has to be applied? Mass of the particle times the acceleration of frame, and in direction opposite to acceleration of frame. So this person observes that the net force acting on this particle downward is m times g plus a, as if the acceleration due to gravity inside this lift appears to be g plus a down. Now this is a very useful concept because let's say they ask, as seen by him, he releases a particle from height h, how much time it will take for the particle to hit the floor of this lift. So you can simply write h equals to half times g plus a into t square. Just like you used to write g, in place of that write g plus a. Similarly, if a bob is suspended from here, the time period of simple pendulum on earth, we know that is 2 pi under root L by g. In place of g, write g plus a. So everything inside this lift can be changed from g to g plus a. One more example, let's say you have a beaker filled with fluid. Somebody asks you what is the difference in pressure within the fluid at 2 points. What is the difference in pressure separated by distance h? For normal earth, you would say rho gh. For this lift, take it as rho g plus a into h. So in place of g, replace everywhere with g plus a. Similarly, if the lift accelerates down with an acceleration a, if an observer stands inside lift and observes a mass, on this mass, in the frame of this observer, two forces will act. A force of gravity mg, a pseudo force upwards ma. Remember that the pseudo force must be applied in direction opposite to acceleration of frame. That's why upward. So the g effective in this world, the net force downward appears to be mg minus ma. So the net force downward appears to be m times g minus a on a particle of mass m, as if the g effective is g minus a. So for lift going up with an acceleration a, g effective is g plus a. For a lift going down with an acceleration a, g effective is g minus a. But what if the person stands inside a cart and the cart accelerates horizontally and there is a mass m placed here inside the cart? On this mass, the person will again see two forces, a force of gravity downward mg, and this person must apply a pseudo force ma. Okay. So on this mass, two forces appear to act, a force of gravity mg downward, a force ma here. So the net force comes out to be m times under root of g square plus a square, m times under root of g square plus a square. So remember that the g effective in this case comes out to be at some angle. How much angle? Let's say angle theta. So you can say tan theta equals to ma by mg. Get cancelled, a by g. And the value of g effective is nothing but under root of g square plus a square. So this person will say, I am standing in a weird world where the acceleration due to gravity is not downward, it is at some angle. This acceleration due to gravity is under root of g square plus a square at an angle theta with the vertical. One fun fact here, if let's say this person observes a bob to be hanging, okay, in equilibrium, this means that in his world the acceleration due to gravity is at some angle theta. So the tension observed in this string will be equal to m times under root of g square plus a square, and this string will appear to be in equilibrium at some angle with the vertical, and then tan theta should be equal to a by g. So now let's do two very similar looking frequently asked out question. So first question is, listen to it carefully. The first question is, we have an incline of inclination theta. What acceleration should be given to the incline so that the block do not slide with respect to incline? What acceleration should be given to incline so that the block do not slide with respect to incline? So if the block do not slide with respect to incline, this means that the block remains at rest with respect to incline. In the frame of incline, what will be the forces acting on block? There will be a force of gravity mg, there will be a force of normal, but since the incline is accelerating, we must apply a pseudo force. In which direction? In the frame of incline, the block will appear to be at rest, but there should be a pseudo force in backward direction ma, in the direction opposite to acceleration of frame. So now, if under the influence of these three forces, in the frame of incline, the block is in equilibrium, this means that the component of force of gravity that is trying to pull it down is balanced by the component of the pseudo force up. Now see, what will be the component of force of gravity trying to pull it down? That will be equal to mg sine theta. And the component of this pseudo force, if this angle is theta, this is also theta. So the component of this pseudo force will be ma cos theta. So you can write, if the net force is 0, then ma cos theta equals to mg sine theta. So mg sine theta equals to ma cos theta. Since the net force is 0 in the frame of incline, the mass is at rest. So cancelling out m both the side, you get acceleration should be equal to g tan theta. Now the brother of this question. There is an incline of inclination theta over which we have placed a mass m. What should be the minimum acceleration given to incline so that the block loses contact with the incline? What should be the minimum acceleration given to incline so that the block loses contact with the incline? So now here, block should lose contact with the incline. In the frame of incline, what forces will be acting on the block? So in the frame of incline will say I am fixed. On this block, there are three forces acting. A pseudo force here ma, a force of gravity here mg. Notice that pseudo force applied in direction opposite to acceleration of frame, and a force of normal. So question is, what has to be the acceleration so that the block loses contact with incline? So for that acceleration, the value of normal reaction should be 0. Now break down all forces in direction of normal. No contact condition means that normal equals to 0. No contact condition means that normal has to be 0. So how to find it? Let's say this angle is theta bit. So kids, this angle will also be theta. The component of force of gravity we know already in the direction of normal is mg cos theta. If this is theta, this angle will be 90 minus theta. The component of pseudo force in direction of normal will be ma cos 90 minus theta, that is ma sin theta. So you can say normal plus ma sin theta should be equal to mg cos theta. Now here, normal has to be 0. So we get that ma sin theta equals to mg cos theta. So the acceleration has to be equals to g cot theta. So the two questions look alike, but they are different. First, what has to be the acceleration of incline so that the block do not slide over incline, g tan theta? What has to be the acceleration of incline so that the block loses contact with the incline, that is g cot theta. Okay, so now let's conclude Newton's law with this example. There is a person of mass 100 kg standing in a cart of mass 50 kg. The string passes over a series of pulleys and the person holds it. Question is, how much force the person must apply on the string so as to keep the system in equilibrium? That is the first part. So how much force he must apply on string so that the whole system remains in equilibrium? Now somebody might start thinking how to solve this question, but this is a very easy question. So now here, let's say the person applies a force F on string. So the string will apply the same force F. On the entire string, the tension will remain same. So here also tension F, here also tension F. So here the tension in this string has to be double, 2F. Now if I take this much power test system, on this whole system, the person plus cart, there is an upward force because of string, and this upward force is 3F. The force of gravity acting on this person plus cart will be equal to overall mass 150 kg into 10. So that is 150 g. So the force that must be applied by person on this string has to be 50 g, and that is equals to 500 Newton. Now in the question, if they give how much force has to be applied by person so that this cart plus person accelerate up with an acceleration a, then I will do the same thing, force FFF here 2F, the net force upward 3F, then I will write 3F should be equal to mass times 150 G effective G plus A. So now here in this case the force comes out to be 50 times G plus A, and if the person plus cart goes down with an acceleration A, In place of G, write G minus A and solve. So in next session, we will start with friction. See you guys.